welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. We are at a gathering, our first live gathering of Family House's Family Circle. The Family Circle is our group of major supporters, and we gather so that the Family Circle can be closer to our mission and closer to each other, because this group is really important to making sure that our families have all of the care and support that they need. Welcome to our conversation. I am up here with Barbara Morgenthau and Mimoh Lee. They are a mother-daughter pair who has been volunteering here for a very long time, and we're going to be learning about how they got to Family House and how they've really made a passion out of volunteering as a family. And that's a very common thing at Family House. So we want more people to know about the meaning of this and what it means to our mission. You probably know our mission. It is to serve families and to provide a home away from home for the families who come from 50 miles and more to San Francisco to get that life-saving care from UCSF while their children are being treated for cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. And we've been around since 1981, and today we are at Family House's third location in our over 40-year history, where we've been since 2016. We're in Mission Bay of San Francisco, and it's a beautiful day in San Francisco. We're going to talk about Barbara and Mimoh, as I said, for about 30 minutes or so. There's time for questions at the end, and then there's time to gather and talk before you go today. So thank you for coming. There's so many great people here today. We have board members, we have donors, we have staff, we have volunteers among us, and it's just a nice community to be in, and very representative of how Family House works, really as a team. So let's talk about the team of Barbara and Mimoh. Let's start by having you tell our audience a little bit about how you got to Family House and who you are, how you first learned about us, how you got involved.
So I started volunteering at Family House when I was in middle school in about 2016. And we learned about Family House because of my uncle. He used to volunteer here a long time ago. And he actually had a long battle with lung cancer and ended up passing away about 11 years ago. And so after that, we talked about it for a long time with my family, and we really wanted to find ways to honor him and honor his memory. And so one of those ways was to volunteer at Family House. And so when I was in maybe 7th grade, that was when this beautiful new building was opened. And my K-8 school was just in the neighborhood, and so we thought it would be a great idea to strike up a little partnership between Family House and the families who attended my school. So we started with a drive where we collected sort of like nighttime items for families who are coming from far away, toothbrushes, teddy bears, pajamas, those kinds of things. And eventually we started doing monthly dinners with some of the families from Live Oak, and people would come and cook and hang out with the families here, and it was the start of a really nice partnership.
Oh, I don't need to say anything now. I'm so proud of my daughter. First of all, thank you so much for having us today.
We're
it's
so
such
glad you're
a
here.
lovely opportunity to talk about something we care so much about, and this place has become part of our family. And I remember I was listening to your last gathering, and John Hodo said we try to make it a home away from home. And for us, it is a home away from home. It feels like home here. We have so many wonderful memories, and we will be making more.
That's great.
But I'd like to introduce my husband, Mimoh Lee, who's a pediatric surgeon at UCSF, and so the partnership probably really began with his work with some of the families who stay here and taking care of the kids and babies and moms, and so that's probably the genesis of our relationship. and Hanmin has been on the board of Family House and for 8 happy years, and is just rolling off now. But so, yeah, and so I facilitated Mimoh's big idea at Live Oak School. We have a wonderful head of school there, Virginia Pack, who was there at the time and still there now. And
About how many years ago was that?
so that was probably 2016, right when Family House opened.
Yep.
And we had a meeting with Alexandra Morgan and Virginia, the head of school, and a couple of other people. And I think Hanmin suggested to Virginia that we, maybe make this a bigger partnership, and because he has big ideas. She said yes, which was thrilling. And at this meeting, we just talked about, how the missions aligned. And Mimoh was there, in 7th grade, speaking up as she always does. And Live Oak, like many schools in San Francisco, really wants kids to be change makers. And so it perfectly aligned with the mission that they had, and at Family House, doing good and helping people and sharing your compassion. So it just evolved from there. And
That's great. So
that was very long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, I'm so glad we're getting to know you. I mean, these stories of how things start here, it always starts with some kind of a spark. And actually, your spark was pretty big. I mean, having Hanmin at the hospital in his role, this wonderful community of Live Oak, and how that helped shape your family, and then coming here into this community. So community is really a big theme with Family House and also in your lives. And I want to know a little bit more about how those communities started working with you, how you found new, deeper level of community here when you started volunteering. How was that part of your experience?
Well, I think bringing families in from Live Oak to do the dinners, we over time we got to know staff here, and the best thing about coming to Family House is how warm and welcoming everyone is. And when you walk through the doors and everyone's like, "Hi, how are you? Hello," and you just feel like you're wanted and you're appreciated, and that's not why you come, but it's so nice. And we worked with Karen Banks to set up kind of a schedule and to talk about logistics, and we talked with Paul Gould about how to prepare our kids for the experience of coming here, because some of the first volunteers were little children. We had kindergartners coming in to help out, and it was amazing how it took off and how popular it became. I mean, we really were turning people away in the beginning from at Live Oak from helping out. So.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we're not doing that anymore because we've only expanded the number of volunteers that come here, and I can understand that it just takes infrastructure to bring people in, and thankfully some of the people that you've worked with have helped us to build that, and the way you've collected people has helped motivate that too. Are there commonalities with the people that you've met here? You talked about how you worked with your administration at Live Oak, Alexandra Morgan, our amazing 22-year retired CEO, the staff here, your fellow students and parents at the school. Like, what did they have in common as you were working at Family House? What are some of the threads that you see?
I would say one of the biggest ones is going above and beyond, really, for everyone that you interact with. I mean, the staff here and a lot of the volunteers, of course, everyone's very friendly and very welcoming, but I think that people are also very curious, and I see staff members all the time, like, stopping families in the hall to ask them very specific questions about how their kid's doing, or, this trip from Family House, and they know all this information about them, and they really seem to care about their lives and their well-being, and I think that's a really unique and beautiful thing about Family House. And even the volunteers, I've been coming back recently with our good friend Mary Kane, who is a longtime volunteer here. And she's another person, she really cares about Family House. And all the time, we'll be handing out meals, and she'll stop and have this really extensive conversation where she knows everything about this family and how many times they've been to Family House and how many kids they have, how old they are, what year of school they're in. And it's really heartwarming to see how much people just really want to be involved in the families' lives and really want to see them succeed.
That's wonderful. Would you add anything to that, Barbara?
Yeah, I think I share those activities.
I mean, I think that I've done a lot of different things at Family House, but so far one of my favorite things has actually been during the pandemic. I would come after online school and with Mary Kane and Paul Gould, and we would deliver the meals to families door to door. And I think that not only was it just really nice to be back here, but I think even for me, just volunteering here during the pandemic was really really important, having that kind of social connection and getting to see some of these families again. I came about every day for a year, and being able to talk to people and see how they were doing, even from a 6 feet distance with a cart in between us, but still being able to build connections with people during the pandemic was very meaningful to me. And yeah, I think at the moment, that's been one of my favorite memories here, but everything that I've had the opportunity to do has been very impactful in my life.
What about you, Barbara? What's your favorite way of volunteering here?
I think I just love doing the family dinners, and I've only done one really since we've come back from COVID, but I just love seeing, how people show up, the volunteers, and then, sort of watching the interactions with families. And, people bring different skills and different parts of themselves. And, there was a mom that used to always come from my son's class to volunteer, and she'd always get there early and set up a big craft activity. And the littles would all come and sit around her, and she was just a very quiet, patient, welcoming person, and it was just lovely to see that. And I didn't know that about her, so. And then another guy who always brought another dad, and also in my son's class, who would always bring the most delicious lasagna, and families would come up to me after and say, can he come again? Can we have that next time? Because he just put a lot of love into it. And that they're just special little moments like that. And then, of course, just getting to hear family stories and talking to them and listening to, what they're going through, and what they need, and what helps them. And some families don't want to sit with a big crowd, and they just take the food and to their rooms, but they're so appreciative, and they're always stop in and say, thank you for being here, which I'm you don't have to thank us. We love doing it.
I know.
But yeah.
I know. Whenever there is a lot of gratitude from the families here,
Sure
and it's always, lovely to experience that, and how wonderful to be in a house that's filled with the gratitude of the community. That's what everyone wants. And yet, when someone says thank you to Family House, I always feel like saying, thank you for being our reason. Thank you for being our reason for being here. And it's amazing how much joy there is in these situations of great challenge. And our volunteers seem to know that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you must have a favorite story. And by the way, I did give Mimoh and Barbara the questions ahead of time, so they've had a little time to practice. So what is your favorite? You must have some great ones.
Yeah, I think that the first one that comes to the top of my head is one of the longtime visitors of Family House is Sental, who I'm sure everybody knows. And back when we first started building the connection between my middle school and Family House, my school, Live Oak, they would have all kinds of little events like carnivals and bingo nights, and so this was one of them. And we invited, we said to Family House, any families that want to come are welcome to come. And so Sental and her mom came, and it was so much fun. You know, I had all of my friends from middle school stayed because they wanted to meet her. And she basically just ran around Family House and was looking. We played bingo, you know, we went into the little prize room. I remember reading her a book. And I still have the pictures in my phone that I'll look at sometimes. And I think it was just for me, one of the best moments because I really got to interact with someone who came to Family House regularly. And over the years, I would see her multiple times, and, you know, I would talk to her mom, and it was really great to see, you know, her doing well and growing up, and,
Yeah, she's a big girl now.
I know.
Yeah.
Being able to share something, you know, with her was
Yeah.
really a pleasure.
Yeah. Ugh, thank you for that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the staff who you've connected with and who've helped connect you to the impact that you have when you're here. What can you tell me a little bit more about the role that you see staff in supporting volunteer projects here, and who have you formed relationships with over the years?
I mean, we've formed relationships with so many of the staff here. I think there were many summers when I wanted to volunteer at Family House and I was out of school but didn't really know what to do. So I would regularly harass Karen and Terrence, like, what can I do? What can I do this summer? So we've been longtime friends with Karen Banks and Terrence, who now we have Sebastian, who I've gotten to meet recently when I've come back on Mondays, which has been really fun. I always love meeting new staff members. And of course, I volunteered throughout the pandemic with Paul Gould, and also with Tyler. He would be around playing with the kids, and of course Alexandra. You know, and we're very happy to meet you now, Catherine.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I'm sure there's more people that I'm forgetting, but I think that I've seen so many of the staff here just really embrace volunteers who maybe, you know, have a specific idea they want to do or don't know where they fit in and are looking for ways to volunteer, to contribute, and are always met with open arms.
Everyone here, if they see you walking down the hall and they know you're not another Family House staff, they'll say, "Do you need anything?" And we brought during the pandemic, we brought lunches from our school over, and we would. You know, we couldn't have any contact with the families here, and it was so heartbreaking. And, you know, we just thinking about how isolated, you know, because of medical reasons, the Family House families were. You know, our school decided that they were going to share our school lunch, which actually worked out beautifully because the kids were coming back in shifts.
Wow.
So, and again, I just asked our head of school if that would be possible, and she was like, "Sure." And I couldn't believe it. So a whole group of parents drove the meals over, and it felt very kind of clandestine. We would pull into the garage, and we were masked, and a different staff member practically every time would come and greet us and be so thankful and welcoming, and, you know, take these big boxes of food, which I think were maybe not the caliber of the Family House dinners, but they were school lunches, basically.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it was great. I bet Live Oak has a fantastic lunch program. And, you know, what did that look like?
You know, we couldn't actually, it was the catering, I'm not sure if they use the same caterer now because we're out of the school actually, but it was Dariush Catering, which they had been using to provide school hot lunch for the kids. And it was everything from, you know, mac and cheese and a little side of broccoli to, you know, some more creative stuff. But yeah, so just your
I'm
basic
sure-
school lunch for lower school and middle school kids. But, you know, I'm sure it was nice to have a hot meal come in, and we loved doing it. And that was another thing where I had so many people signing up. I felt terrible saying, well, so they beat you to it. You were sorry. Everybody wanted to, you know, do what they could. People felt so helpless during COVID, and helping out felt so good, and like you were, you know, doing something positive. And plus we had all these dinners scheduled. We were going to be in Family House, and then when COVID hit, you know, that all had to come to a halt. So
Right.
it was a nice way of
Yeah,
keeping
you
it
really
going.
fulfilled that commitment. I mean, you had one idea of how it was going to go, and
We
it
had
was
to
just another
pivot.
way of pivoting.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you did that. That's really interesting, like that we were nurturing our families with school lunch from Live Oak at the beginning of the pandemic. I didn't know that. I think that's pretty cool. Thank you to Live Oak, and thank you to you for doing that. Okay, so we've had 3 locations since 1981. 2 were in the Sunset, and we've been here since 2016. Did you have an experience of going to the older homes, or were you really, on board when we moved in?
I mean, mostly we started volunteering at when the new location opened because it was, so close to the children's hospital, so close to my school. But I do believe my uncle actually, volunteered at some of the older locations, which was how we heard about Family House.
Okay.
And so it's always been a very special place to us.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you walked in?
Oh gosh, I think we visited actually before it opened, before the families had started coming in, and I just remember my first reaction was, wow, there's so much sunlight, it's so colorful, and I think that was what really stood out to me and was like, wow, I think this could be a very welcoming place for a family that's going through a really hard time. And yeah, I mean, here we are sitting in this beautiful courtyard on a day that's 70 degrees in San Francisco, and yeah, it's a pretty great place to be.
Oh, I love that initial memory of the openness and the light. I think that surprises a lot of people, Mimoh. They don't expect that when they hear about Family House. They may not be prepared for that feeling. And so it does surprise people. Barbara, do you remember what that felt like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did do a hard hat tour, and it was great to see the beginnings of what this has become. And I had the same reaction: light, air, beauty. Just happy spaces. That really are going to be great for kids. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And I remember Alexandra when I think it was on the tour, not that initial visit. She was like, yeah, I want people to just hang out on this staircase and, sit and have conversations. And it was so fantastic. So we did a tour, we took the whole school, and I think that also, not the whole school, but, a group that signed up.
Yeah.
And I think that got a lot of people inspired to come volunteer.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, during that hard hat tour, there was this vision of all of these places where people could gather. And what I'm struck by, but maybe not surprised by, because I can see the impact in what Family House is now, but the amazing attention to what the family experience was going to be like in this new building. There's no building that I think any of us have seen that's been built or developed for this purpose of housing these families in these times of crisis that we feel functions as well as this building does. And it was because so many smart people were on the same page, and the design really has shaped the experience. And I love hearing how those moments of experience they've been for you as volunteers. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the pandemic, and I didn't mention that Barbara and also Selena Tabakawala, who's a board member of ours, were honored with other really wonderful volunteers at our gala in the spring for all they did during the pandemic. There were lots of people who really, really helped, and there were a few leaders in the, of the pack. And Barbara and Selena were in that pack, and we are so grateful for what you did during the pandemic as leaders. And I want to know, it was such an important time to serve families. That didn't go away, and you knew that. And serving, as you've talked about, came with enormous challenges. So as you were continuing to serve at such a high level and such a passionate level during that time, what kept you motivated to serve, through those obstacles? And, what were some of the ways that you adapted and met those challenges?
Well, I just think, thinking about what the families were going through, and feeling like we had a lot of resources that we could share. And Selena has been an incredible partner at Live Oak, and I'm so happy that she went on to the board. She sort of stepped up day one, I think, when we started planning the meals and said, I want to do this. And it was great because Mimoh was already in 7th grade, and she had kids in younger. She sort of covered the lower school. And she had pull. She would get so many volunteers to sign up, and it was really wonderful. And she's had a lot of great ideas, I know, at Family House. I've been following her. So yeah, absolutely. Just thinking about what do families need in this difficult time, and what can we do, and just always, and I think we've been really lucky to be in places where people listen to your ideas and say yes, and are open to creative solutions. And, it's not all cookie cutter. Karen would always say, like, what do you want to do? I would say, I don't know, what should we do? And she'd say, what do you want to do? And then, which is great, because being asked that lets you think, okay, we've got all these people and talent, and then parents have time, they come at pickup and they want to do stuff with their kids. So anyway, it's just sort of an organic thing.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks again for what you did. It kept us going. We have a few thousand volunteers every year in regular year, and then there were just years in that pandemic where we dipped down to the low hundreds, and thankfully we're building all the way back this year, which is fantastic. But it really, we were so limited with what we could do, but yet the families were served by this wonderful community, and it was so much about the creativity and the leadership. And also, as you talked about, Barbara, the empathy. Like, the empathy was just so deep here for the people that we needed to be here for. So thank you for that. So what keeps you coming back? And what do you want to do next? Kind of like Karen's question. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And is there anything here that you haven't done yet that you've been thinking about?
I think that what keeps me coming back are just the families and the staff here. I think this place just really is very special to us. And even, we have a stone out here in the courtyard, one to honor my uncle and one to honor my grandfather, who passed away about 2 years ago. And this place has just really become so ingrained in our lives. And I think that I really do think back on the time when my uncle was sick, and he was a very important person in my life and to all of us, and just a light of a human being, so joyous. And I think when he was sick, you could really see how hard it was. And he had his lovely fiance and our family to support him, but it was a really hard time. And I think even being a kid, I can remember that. And so I can't even imagine how that must feel if, you have a younger sibling or an older sibling that's sick, to be a parent with a sick child. Like, that's just an unimaginable pain and unimaginable time. And really, when I think back on that, I think, how I felt in the moment and how I want to be able to support people who are going through, that kind of a hard time. And I think, it's a great way to honor my uncle's life and my grandfather's life and the spirit and the joy that they brought to this world. And so that's really what I pull from when I come back here. And now just the relationships that I've built with the staff, with the families. And, I have recently been coming back, since I've been in college, to hand out the meals. And that's really just one of my favorite things to do, because I get to interact one-on-one with the families who come by and, ask them how they're doing and get to know new people. And in terms of, new things that I want to do, I'm always interested in different kinds of crafts and activities. I know people have been working on the library. Really, yeah. I'm always open to anything and everything.
Thanks. That's great. Well, we can't wait to have you back next week,
yeah.
next year. Yeah. What about you, Barbara?
I was going to say looking forward to, but I'm not looking forward to being an empty nester. But when my son gets out of high school, I'm going to come here and just move in, and I'll do anything. Right? I'll answer the phones. organize Fozzie's toy room. I'll do whatever you want. So I look forward to those days.
Thank you.
But not too much because although you are out of the nest, but we have one more in high school. So
Well, you can just feel how deeply your family is here, and the doors are so open
thank you.
for your amazing generosity.
Thank you.
What's the one thing that you wish that people knew about Family House?
I would say just how joyful it is to come, and there are people going through the most difficult experiences in their lives, but at the same time, they have children and they want their siblings here too. And for both the kids who are getting treatment and the siblings, they want a sense of normalcy and fun, and kids want to have fun.
Yeah.
And so I think when we first came, I remember asking Karen or Terrence, do we need to be more quiet when we come? Should we not let the 7th grade boys run around? And she's like, no, we like that. We like when you bring some life, and there's plenty of life here. And so I think that's the thing I would say.
One thing I would say is that there's always something you can do. Even if you don't have a lot of time, you're very busy, you can come, do a meal once, twice, as many times, and keep coming back. Or, if you have 1 hour a week to come and help volunteer, you can distribute meals like I do. There's always some kinds of crafts, like my mom said, restocking Fozzie's toy room. There's always something to do, and you can come with new ideas. If you're an artist, or, there's so many ways to contribute, and there's not just one path. So you can make it your own, and find a way to connect with the families and with the community here that feels authentic to yourself and what you have to share.
Amazing. We are so lucky to have your family, so lucky to have your connection, and to be able to see the way you've grown together and grown your community in the mission of Family House. Thank you so much for this conversation, Barbara
Thank you,
and Mimoh.
Catherine.
You guys are amazing.
Oh, thank
We're
you.
honored to have you here.
We're honored to be here, and thank you so much for having us, and thank you guys for coming, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Wonderful. So thank you to our families who loaned us their space today.
Yes.
Thank you to our guests for being here. It's just wonderful to see you all. And thank you to our amazing staff. I have chills right now because they worked so hard to make sure that this was a lovely experience that we could share with the world, because we knew that what we were going to talk about was going to be just so inspiring. So thank you, staff team. All right. Well, this concludes our conversation about volunteering as a family. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next time at Family House. Oh, and come volunteer.
Yes.